As the New Orleans Saints QB2 battle is set to go under the microscope, it's Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler who are under the most pressure this preseason. We got all that and a little bit of lanyap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as the Saints beat reporter over at the soon-to-launch LouisianaSports.net and Saints analyst over at WWL-TV. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here with us for another episode of Locked On Saints. And on today's episode, I'm going to give you all of the details on Pete Werner's new deal, which yet again is well constructed by the New Orleans Saints, but does give Pete Werner a really good commitment moving forward. Who could we see get a contract like that next? We'll take a look at that. We're also going to take a look at Trevor Penning and a couple of other players who are looking to prove themselves this preseason. And we're starting off with the two players that are under the most pressure this preseason, and that, of course, is the QB2 battle between Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us your first listen of the day every day and for being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs wants to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So it seems pretty obvious to me that it's Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, that are under the most pressure this preseason. John Hendricks and I did our live Second and Saints show up in Fullerton, California, over at Bourbon Street Bar and Grill. Had a blast. And one of the great questions that we got while we were there is, which of the two quarterbacks is under the most pressure? And I make the argument, personally, that both quarterbacks are under a unique amount of pressure, just from different angles, right? I don't know that one is under more pressure than the other. I think they're both under pressure, but they're under pressure for different reasons. We'll start with Jake Haener. He is the incumbent, after all. And so his pressure comes from being the incumbent that now has a new challenger in the building. Saints drafting Spencer Rattler effectively puts a target on Jake Haener's back as somebody that was going to ultimately be discussed as someone that's trying to fend off the rookie or compete for a job. And that's exactly what he has done here over the course of training camp, and what he's done well here over the course of training camp. You can see his passion, you can see how much he loves the game, and you can see the throws that he could make, the mental processing that he has, the placement on the football, the anticipation. All of those things are there for a Jake Haener. Things that he lacks: big arm, big size. Those are the things that you're looking for. So he's not the NFL quarterback arm. He's not the NFL quarterback size, but he is all of the other things that we have kind of celebrated around Jake Haener. So now he has to prove that as a smaller quarterback, as a quarterback that isn't necessarily going to push the ball 60, 70 yards down the field, but can still get the ball down the field, by the way, that he can be an NFL level quarterback, whether that's of the backup rank or eventually of the starter rank. That part's not going to be figured out this year. But is he an NFL talent is something that's going to be under the microscope, especially with a young rookie that's pushing and pushing and pushing to kind of unseat him as the second quarterback on this roster, which is what we effectively believed was going to be Jake Haener's job going into 2024. Now, all of a sudden, there's competition. And when there's competition and you're the incumbent, there's a lot of pressure on you to maintain your performance, maintain your gig, maintain your job. So I think that the pressure for Jake Haener comes from the addition of Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler's pressure comes from an entirely different place. It goes all the way back to the QB1 Netflix docuseries. It goes all the way back to Oklahoma and transferring away from Oklahoma, going to South Carolina, all the conversations around his attitude, all the conversations around his play style, all the conversations around his decision-making, whatever it might be, whatever criticisms were out there, those are all now a part of the pressure for Spencer Rattler, who will take the field as an NFL quarterback for the first time in tomorrow's preseason game, we assume. And so to me, that's where Spencer Rattler's pressure comes from. I don't know if that's more than Jake Haener's pressure, but I think it's a really significant amount of pressure, and it's a really unique level of pressure. Effectively, a lot of people are going to make their entire understanding of Spencer Rattler for the rest of his career based upon what he does in tomorrow's preseason game. And I don't think that that's fair, but I think that that's something that's going to happen. If he performs well, people are going to feel good about him. If he performs awfully, all the people that were waiting for him to fail are going to tout and wave their victory flags about him failing. And that's going to be their opinion of him no matter what he does throughout the rest of his career. And that sucks, if I'm being honest. Like, that's, to me, not the way that we should look at players. We should look at players that are performing poorly and acknowledge that they're performing poorly. And we should look at players that change and perform great and acknowledge them for performing great, and vice versa. We should be able to adjust our opinions based on the evidence that's in front of us. That should be an okay thing to do. But unfortunately, that's just simply not the way that the sports landscape tends to work. People will make their minds up about Spencer Rattler right away, or they'll make their minds up about Jake Haener right away. And if you like one and you like the other, in no world can you appreciate or accept the good things that the other one is doing. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know why we do this, but that's some of the pressure that these guys are now feeling, because the pressure goes beyond just the job. The pressure goes beyond just what's going on in the facility. The pressure goes to what happens. What's the conversation like about you in the media? What's the conversation like about you on social media? What's the conversation with you like when you're seen on the street and all these other things? Like, there will always be that exterior pressure that everybody loves to talk about, that they drown out, that they tune out the outside noise and all those other things. And for those that actually do that, good for them. But it's becoming, I imagine, increasingly more and more difficult to tune all of that stuff out. So that's why I think these guys are both under a lot of pressure, and the most pressure going into this game, but why that pressure is uniquely different. But unfortunately, what will be true for both of them is that people will make their minds up about everything that they have. Every opinion that they have on both of these players will be made up by the time that this Arizona Cardinals game is over. And that part kind of stinks. The other reason why I think these two guys are under pressure too is because in kind of the long game aspect, you're not just competing to be the quarterback 2 in the 2024 New Orleans Saints offense behind Derek Carr. You're competing to put yourself in prime position to eventually become Derek Carr's successor here in New Orleans. Regardless of how you feel about Derek Carr, if you like him, if you don't like him, if you love him, you hate him, whatever, Derek Carr is an older quarterback, quote unquote, over the age of 30. And so therefore, you're not looking at Derek Carr and going, okay, you got 10 years with him, right? You're looking at the end of his contract already. Like, you're already almost there within the next couple of years. And so because of that, you have to be ready and starting to develop your succession plan behind Derek Carr. And the easiest way to develop a succession plan is with the guys that you have developed. And guys like Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, for the first time that I can remember in a long time for the New Orleans Saints, have been good, young, developmental pieces at the quarterback position for this team. So not only are they setting themselves up for the clipboard holding role here in 2024, they should be setting themselves up to be in prime position for more than that in 2026, 2027, whatever. I doubt that they'll be the only two quarterbacks that will be a part of the conversation by the time that we get to that point. However, they are now trying to put themselves in position to at least be in the best part of that conversation at a later time. So I think that's a lot of pressure for both of these guys, not only for the present, but for the future. And for Spencer Rattler, a lot of the pressure is coming from the past, whereas Jake Haener, a lot of the pressure is coming from the present. And in all cases, they're trying to solidify what it is that they can do moving forward. And all of that generates more and more pressure. That's why I think that they're under the most pressure. I have 3 other guys that are under a lot of pressure as well going into this preseason, leading off with Trevor Penning, who absolutely must prove himself. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is the same formula that keeps your ride or die alive. Over at eBay Motors, you're going to have everything that you need to be able to level your car up to peak performance. And whether you're looking for superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, exhaust kits, and much more, you're going to be able to find exactly what you're looking for at eBay Motors, whether you're into speed, power, or style. With over 122 parts for your number one ride or die, you'll have no problem finding exactly what you're looking for at ebaymotors.com. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. For all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, you'll be able to make your car the MVP and start bringing home some huge W's with eBay Motors. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Exclusions apply, eligible items only, and eBay guaranteed fit, available only to U.S. customers. All right, family, it's offensive lineman Trevor Penning that I think also has amongst the most to prove during the New Orleans Saints preseason. I got him and two other players for you that are under the most pressure going into at least his first preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals. We appreciate you very much for making us your first listen. For your second listen, make sure you go and check out Locked On Fantasy Football. They're on fire right now. Vinny and Michelle giving you everything you need to get ready for and win your fantasy football leagues, making you the smartest fantasy football player every single Monday through Friday over at Locked On Fantasy Football. Go and check them out wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So Trevor Penning had a really rough day yesterday. I spoke about it on the show, talked about it with the insiders, with, over on social media as well, and things like that. And it was just, it was a really rough day. He got beat by Chase Young late in practice after three straight reps. At least two of those were sacks on Derek Carr. There were 3 total sacks on that drive, back to back against Derek Carr. And Trevor Penning was responsible for at least 2 of them and definitely got beat a third time as well. Just kind of in his head, he got into a little bit of a scuffle with Nathan Shepard at an earlier point in practice, and it just didn't seem like he was right after that, right? Just kind of like in his head and all these other things. So is it indicative of his entire camp that he had a struggle of a day on Thursday, the last practice before this preseason game? No. He's had ups and downs. He's looked pretty good in the run game. He's had his moments in the passing game. He's had his failures in the passing game, all that other stuff too. So we'll see where things go. I think Trevor Penning is still looking to prove himself. I don't think that he's done enough over the course of these couple of weeks of training camp. Dennis Allen effectively said as much in his press conference on Thursday, saying that he's not ready to, effectively paraphrasing, not ready to commit to Trevor Penning being the starting right tackle. But everything else in the offensive line looks right. Taliesin Fuanga has done well at left tackle. Lucas Patrick has held it down at left guard. And then your center and right guard are all set. So you probably feel pretty good about the offensive line in at least 3 of 5 places, at least 4 of 5 places, depending upon how you feel about the veteran and Lucas Patrick, who I have liked watching a lot. So I think that this offensive line as a unit should be at least okay, right? Should be middle of the road. But if you get Trevor Penning operating at the highest possible level that you can get from him, then it gets even better. So I think that he's got a lot to prove here. If we look back at last year, just starting in the preseason, he only played 22 snaps in the preseason, but during that 22 pass blocking snaps in the preseason, but during that time, he allowed no pressures, no sacks, no hurries, all of that. So we have to be cautious about what the preseason actually tells us about players. If a player performs well in the preseason, that's kind of the end of the story. They performed well in the preseason, and it allows you maybe to develop your sort of cautious expectations going into the regular season, but it shouldn't develop your expectations going into the regular season. I think we learned that as well, watching that first drive against the Kansas City Chiefs last year in the preseason, and then what the offense actually turned out to look like for the first 12 games of the year. And so Trevor Penning, who played 245 pass blocking snaps at left tackle last year in the regular season, allowed 4 sacks, 3 additional hits on the quarterback, and a total of 19 pressures. Very different story in that case, where you're talking about just about a third of a pressure every snap versus no pressures, a third of a pressure every 10 snaps or 20 snaps. But then not so much the same story when it comes to that preseason. So you can only take so much away when it comes to it. But I do think that Trevor Penning should be looking and is looking to prove himself a bit more here over the course of the preseason to show that, hey, I can do this. I deserve this spot, all that. It's a real opportunity for him. Let's see if he's able to get it done with all the pressure that's around him. Another player that I feel like has a lot of pressure around him in the trenches goes to the opposite side of the football, and that's Peyton Turner. And I don't mean this in an unfair way. Again, my question around Peyton Turner has never been ability. It's never been ability. He's an incredibly talented player. He is somebody that has won and won and won and won and won over and over and over again all throughout training camp. Yes, he had a little bit of the toe aggravation that kept him out of a practice, but he was right back out there as quickly as he could be. Had a nice practice again to close out the week. I'm really excited to see him because the ability and the talent is absolutely there. The pressure that's on him is to stay healthy. That's going to be the biggest thing, right? The team did not pick up his 5th-year option for next year. This is a contract year now for Peyton Turner, who's looking to effectively try to earn a 1-year deal, right? Another deal in 2025 to kind of prove it and say, here's what I can do. If he has a good year here, though, then I think things get a lot better for him. He can seek more than just the 1-year deal, all those other things. But this preseason is kind of where it all starts. I think that he is under a lot of pressure just to show, hey, I can go out there, I can perform well, I can stay healthy. Because we've seen him stay healthy now for 2 straight training camps, but it has been once he gets into those games that we've seen the injury set in. Looked pretty good against the Tennessee Titans last year until he couldn't anymore, and all those other things. So I would look at Peyton Turner as somebody that's under pressure and needs to prove himself, but it's not from an ability standpoint. It's just from an availability standpoint. Can you stay on the field? I think that's going to be the big thing. From an ability standpoint, I think wide receiver A.T. Perry is going to be the last one that we'll discuss here in terms of players with the most pressure. A.T. Perry's training camp has been a roller coaster. It has been a couple of really good days and then complete drop-offs where he's dropping wide open passes, not coming back to fight for the football, all these other things. These have been consistent inconsistencies for A.T. Perry. And so I think he needs to be able to show, just like he did last year during the regular season, during those 7 regular season games, where he looked outstanding and contributed to, big games, contributed 2 games, had that big couple of contributions up against the Atlanta Falcons to help close out the season, all those other things. I thought that he was going to have a stronger training camp based upon what we saw. He had the momentum, he had the opportunity, he had the talent. Those were the 3 things that we kind of looked at and said, okay, you check all 3 of those boxes, you're a breakout candidate for the upcoming year. And that's the way that we looked at A.T. Perry. Now, I'm having trouble looking at him as a breakout candidate because we haven't seen it in practice. Now, maybe he shows it under the lights. Maybe he's one of those guys that turns it on when the game is actually underway, all those other things. I worked with actors that were that way. I've known athletes to be that way. There are definitely those players. There are definitely those people that show up most when the pressure is there, when the lights are on, all those other things. That's great. But you have to be able to show it consistently in practice as well. And we've seen the slipping and the falling while running routes. We've seen the drop passes. We've seen the lack of fight to come back for the football in certain cases and things like that. I don't think that those things are fully telling the story of who A.T. Perry is as a player. When we saw him during the regular season, we saw him come back for the football. We saw him fight for those contested catches. We've seen him fight for the contested catches here as well. He is still very much a good jump ball guy. But some of the other stuff like the drops and all those other things that we've seen here at training camp, we didn't see as much during the regular season for A.T. Perry. So I think he's got to show here during the preseason that like, hey, I can turn this on and I can keep it on. And that's going to be the big thing. If he goes out there and has a really good game against the Arizona Cardinals, awesome. That's exactly what the New Orleans Saints want to see. I think that's exactly what you want to see as well as a Saints fan. But then he's got to carry it through practice into those San Francisco 49ers joint practices and then into that San Francisco 49ers preseason game. You're going to want to see him continue the trajectory that he builds in this preseason game so that it's not just game-wise, that it goes on into practices and all those other things as well. So Trevor Penning, Peyton Turner, A.T. Perry, also on the list for me of guys that need to have good preseasons, that have a lot of pressure on them, and especially a lot of pressure on them going into tomorrow night's Arizona Cardinals game, which, by the way, just a reminder, will be live immediately as that game comes to an end to break down everything that went on. We appreciate you very much for being here. Coming up next, we're going to dive into Pete Werner's contract. I got the deets. Let me give them to you. We got all that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends at LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs wants to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to hire for your small business faster. They don't want you to have to wait around. They try to give you every tool that you need, including helping you write job descriptions, helping you post jobs, everything. They give you all of the tools to make sure you're getting your job posting up soon and making sure that it's an effective job posting as well, to make sure that you're bringing in the type of person that you want, that has the requisite experience, that's a good culture fit, that's a good person, all of the things. You know, your business is only as successful as the team that you build to run it. So you want to make sure you're getting the right access to the right people. And that's what I love about LinkedIn. Humongous network. And over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other job sites. LinkedIn is where you want to be. And that's a place where over 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting their job. It just doesn't get any better than LinkedIn. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your mental health non-negotiables. Maybe you're a gym rat, you never miss leg day. Maybe you're somebody like me who loves to cook. That's a big non-negotiable for me. Maybe you are also like me and you never miss a therapy day, never want to skip a therapy day. That is a big one for me as well. And what has helped me be able to achieve that big time have been my friends over at BetterHelp, who I have been visiting BetterHelp since pandemic, where things got pretty tough, I think, for everybody. And I really needed sort of that person to talk to and all those other things. And BetterHelp has been awesome. And because of their really accessible platform, the fact that I can do video chats, text messages, phone calls, and stuff like that, it allows me to never miss a therapy day because I don't have to sit through traffic or sit in an awkward waiting room. All those other things helps me out a ton. So never skip a therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Pete Werner's contract is yet another solid contract by the New Orleans Saints. It also does a really good job of serving their needs and Pete Werner's at the same time. We appreciate you very much for being here. Don't forget, we are your team every day. No show Saturday morning, but we will have a live show right after Saturday night's preseason game, and that will carry you through the weekend. Can't wait to break that down as we take a look at what's going on with the New Orleans Saints this preseason. All right. Pete Werner got an extension earlier this week, 3 years, and it's worth over $25 million, but it's not exactly $25 million right off the bat. Let's break down some of the details for this contract. Let's start with the biggest number first. This is not a 3-year, $25 million contract. Here's what it actually is. It's a 3-year, $22.5 million contract that has some incentives and escalators built into it that can help get it to just over $25 million. So he on average is making around $7.5 million. So a really good linebacker contract here for the New Orleans Saints and a solid payday for Pete Werner. That puts him right around guys that were drafted like Cade. Or actually, it's funny, it puts him just over Caden Ellis, right? That's the next paid linebacker underneath him. Puts him right around some other guys like Kenneth Murray and Blake Cashman, who are recent draft picks. Puts him under guys like Levante David and, of course, Demario Davis, who makes 8.6. But it's nowhere near the top end of $20 million for Roquan Smith, $19 million for Fred Warner. We're not talking about that kind of a contract. And it's good for New Orleans, but it's also good for Pete Werner, who gets a solid deal here. So really like the overall structure of this contract. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. So we mentioned that this contract was actually worth just over $25 million. That is true. It's worth just over 25 at $25.05 million. Here's how you get to that. I'm not going to overload you with numbers here. I'm just going to tell you that there are incentives in this deal. So it includes snap bonuses for each of the 4 years of his contract. So that includes 2024 through 2027. All right. So he can start earning these snap bonuses this year. All he's got to do is appear in 95% or more of snaps. That's where you're looking at. The other things that you're looking for 2024 and 2025 are escalators for 85% and 90% of playing time. So there's a difference between incentives and escalators that I want to make sure that we highlight. Incentives are guaranteed, right? Once you earn them, you get them. There are not likely to be earned incentives that count against next year's salary cap. There are likely to be earned incentives that count against the present year's salary cap. Likely versus not likely is completely based upon what that player did the year before their incentive-laden contract. So this is why, for instance, when it comes to Chase Young's deal, 16 of his 17 game day bonuses are considered likely to be earned because he appeared in as many games last year. But one of them will not be likely to be earned. So that one would count against next year. Now, when it comes to these escalators, they're effectively raises for next year, but they're not guaranteed salary. So if a player earns an escalator in 2024 and is set to be paid it in 2025, but has no guaranteed salary in 2025, and a team cuts them, that doesn't create guaranteed money. That escalator is considered non-guaranteed as well. And speaking of guarantees, remember what we always talk about. The overall value of a contract is one part of the conversation. It's a nice flowery part of the conversation in terms of negotiations and stuff like that. But the real most important part of a contract are what are the guarantees. And there's not a lot of guarantees here for Pete Werner, if we're being honest. He's guaranteed the $5.5 million signing bonus that he was given. He is guaranteed his 2024 and 2025 base salary. So just over $11 million is guaranteed, or excuse me, just over $17 million is guaranteed. The thing about this, though, is that all those guarantees are effectively paid out within the first couple of years, with the exception of that prorated signing bonus that goes all the way into 2028 because they added a void year, 5 years, stretch it out. You know how it goes. So 2024 and 2025 are currently guaranteed in terms of his base salary. Those are guaranteed years. 2026 and 2027, however, have zero guaranteed salary attached to them, with one caveat. In 2026, his salary would become guaranteed, his base salary, which is just over $6 million, would become guaranteed on the 5th day of the 2025 season. So it's likely that he'll earn that 2026 guarantee because he's probably going to be on the roster in 2025 since his salary is guaranteed in 2025. You understand what I'm saying? So I would expect that he becomes a really, really prime restructure candidate for the 2026 season. That $6.25 million base salary can easily be restructured, push some money down the road, locks him in potentially for a little bit of 2027 as well. He gets to see the life of his contract. I think it's pretty possible here that Pete Werner sees the life of his deal based on the likelihood that he'll be restructured in 2026 when he's 28 years old. And here's the other thing that I really like is that this contract expires before he turns 30. So if he's going to get a new contract, he's not going to get a new contract until he's either 28, 29, or 30 years old. That works in the favor of the New Orleans Saints as well. So that's the way that I look at this contract. It is overall a solid deal for New Orleans to get their linebacker that's probably going to be the future of the position, at least for a little while, or to some extent. Locked down on a contract that makes a lot of sense for them. Again, $7.5 million per year is not that steep of an ask. And it gives Pete Werner a pretty solid amount of money, but it also safeguards the Saints. They can deal with things like, the roster bonus, or not the roster bonuses, I'm sorry, but the signing bonus, and then push that down. Easy to deal with. They were able to deal with giving themselves an opportunity to maybe get out of the contract post 2026 if they want to. But then they set Pete Werner up to earn guaranteed money by being on the roster in 2025. Nice and simple. So really good stuff there, I think, in terms of how this contract works. I want to take a look at one other piece, though, on this deal, and it's how it impacts the 2024 salary cap. Because even though the extension was a 3-year deal for 2025, 2026, and 2027, the Saints gave him a signing bonus that begins to pay out here in 2024. So here's how the Saints manage this signing bonus. It's a $5.5 million signing bonus. They added a void year in 2025 and started the prorated payments here in 2024. So that splits it out evenly to $1.1 million over the course of the next 5 years. Pretty logical. What that also means, though, is that his base or his cap hit in 2024 went from just over $1.8 million up to $2.9 million. So according to the NFLPA, the New Orleans Saints had about $14.29 million available in their salary cap. They've now taken on an additional 1.1, so that leaves them with about $13.19 million in salary cap space. I know that's a lot of numbers, but here's the main thing, and I'll repeat it just to make sure that it's clear. The Saints do take on new funding, new spending this year with this deal. It's not a lot of money. It's $1.1 million. They still have $13.9 million in salary cap available. So that means that if they want to go out and sign a Justin Simmons, they still have the salary cap space to do that. And they still have the ability, if they extend if they extend Alvin Kamara, if they tweak Paul Sidibo's contract a little bit, that they can still open up more salary cap space here in 2024, depending upon how they go about that. If they treat Alvin Kamara's contract like they treated DeMario Davis and Tyrann Mathieu, here's some guaranteed money in the future. In exchange, we knock down some of your base salary here in 2024. Boom, you're set. You're making more money at that point. So just want to make sure that I clear that up. This money did not say this extension for Pete Werner did not save the Saints money. They took on new spending, but not enough for it to be a hindrance for them to do anything that they wanted to do this offseason. All right, there's your download for today. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Make sure you go check out Locked On Pelicans and Locked On LSU as well. We'll see you tomorrow night, after the preseason game, where the New Orleans Saints will take on the Arizona Cardinals, and we'll break everything down. Thank you very much, as always, for making Locked On Saints a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me in the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media, at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. I trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.